This thing, it's specifically the darkling beetle larva, which sounds very Elden Ring, very Dungeons and Dragons. Sounds like, yeah, you collect it to make consumables or something. This thing can't just eat this occasionally. This larva can exist entirely off a diet of styrofoam and grow into adulthood. History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. If you've listened to our stories on plastics and on microplastics, you're well aware of the problem. Many people who work in the plastic industry, as a matter of fact, have written to us about the scope of this issue. Just fairly recently, scientists discovered worms that don't just eat plastic, but they can digest it. They can digest styrofoam. They can take it into their bodies, take nutrition from it. And yes, and this is it's polystyrene is the technical name. But this is one of the most common types of plastic. It's somewhere between 7 to 10% of all the what's called non-fibrous plastic produced. This thing, it's specifically the darkling beetle larva, which sounds very Elden Ring, very Dungeons and Dragons. Sounds like, yeah, you collect it to make consumables or something. This thing can't just eat this occasionally. This larva can exist entirely off a diet of styrofoam and grow into adulthood.
Okay, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So do we now create farms, essentially, where we send all our plastics and that these worms eat them? And then is there maybe an unrecognized as of yet consequence where we let them eat them unchecked and they grow into super worms that then become a new problem we have to deal with?
And they start eating vinyl siding and stucco on all of our homes.
Yeah.
Like the giant snails from Africa.
Just so.
Nice. That's another related story, Matt. You and I were talking about that off air. Yeah, it's a good question, especially when you consider that pretty much every living thing has plastics of some sort in it, including you listening today, no matter what year it is. Here's what they're hoping to do. And this comes from the author of the study, a guy named Chris Rink. What they're hoping to do is not grow the worms necessarily, whose street name is Zophobus morio. They're hoping to sample the gut flora. So this is related to the gut flora stuff we did earlier. They want to isolate the microbial genes that can digest this polystyrene through a process known as metagenomics. And then they want to produce enzymes from that on a large scale and just use the enzymes in a recycling plant. So in a way, they're ripping off the worms. They're taking the work that the worms are doing and they're throwing the worms away. Nobody's worried about what's happening to the worms. Sadly, that's a conversation for another day. But I got to ask, people have their own personal phobias. If you could have a mini recycling plant in your house in the future that was just this worm terrarium, and you just, when you were done with plastic stuff, you just threw, your plastic bottle of Mountain Dew, zero sugar, Baja Blast into the terrarium.
This is aluminum, sir.
That's aluminum, yes, but surely they're going to have a plastic
goats for that. Yeah, that's a goat.
Yeah, you need goats.
Snack. But I mean, I picture it being
chop up lawns.
I picture it, terrarium is exactly right, Ben. I picture it I'm in my mind, I'm thinking like an ant farm where you can kind of view them going through their little tunnels and stuff, but it's entirely made of plastic. Remember those cross sections you used to see in Earth Day situations that would show you a cross section of a landfill? I'm picturing that, but also populated with these worms that are eating their way down through it, like the very hungry caterpillar kind of situation. I think that would be remarkable and a really fun way to have some pets.
So that's my question. Going back to what I was setting up about phobias, I know a lot of people have a phobia about insects or worms or things that crawl in the subterranean world. Would you be okay with this in your own home? Let us know. Also, let us know if you blew up the Georgia Guidestones.